term metabolism means that it's a sum total of all the chemical reactions that occur in a cell. When we're talking about reactions, reactions are of many kind. Sometimes certain reactions help break down a large macromolecule, and sometimes small elements or small monomers are used to build up a large macromolecule. And metabolism is the sum total of all of these reactions. So when we say metabolism, we're not just talking about reactions that build a molecule. It can be reaction that will also break down large molecules. The main source of energy for us is the solar energy. That is the energy that is provided by the sun. The energy that is provided excuse me, by the sun helps us do all kind of work. This energy is firstly taken in by a organelle within the plant cell, which is called as the chloroplast. The chloroplast traps that solar energy and forms a molecule which is glucose. Thus, the solar energy plus carbon dioxide from the air or environment and water is used to form the molecule of glucose. Glucose has a tremendous amount of energy stored in its structure. And we will now look at how the energy is stored and what is energy and so forth. Notice when the glucose molecule is released, some of the energy is shown as dissipated as heat. So firstly, what is our definition of energy? What is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. When we say work, we're not just talking about physically moving along. It can be a constant change. So for example, when you have a meal and you even lay down or you sit down, then the cells within your organs are constantly working to digest that meal. So anytime you are working or you have the potential to work, that will be the energy. Now, most of us are familiar with like solar energy, or if I give you example, for example, mechanical energy. Mechanical energy would be the energy that is required to move a machine. Another one is electrical energy. That is the energy that is used to run appliances. There is a nuclear energy that is released from radioactive isotopes. Chemical energy that is stored in chemicals. So the list can go on and on and on. The two main types of energy that we want to look into are kinetic energy and potential energy. Kinetic energy is the energy which is due to motion, or it results in movement. So anytime, whether it's an atom or a ball that is vibrating or moving, whether it's a car that's moving, whether you're walking, whether any kind of motion is taking place, that energy that is used at that time is the kinetic energy. However, potential energy is the stored form of energy. So for example, if you go and fill up your car with gasoline, then that is the stored energy. And when you run the machine to run the car, then the stored energy is converted into kinetic energy. So these are the two main forms of energy. So for example, over here we can see if the flow of energy that is shown in this diagram is that the plant is converting the solar energy into chemical energy, which is shown over here. This chemical energy then converts to mechanical energy of motion when the animal moves, and some of that is also along this process released as heat. So here is one, and here's another one, and here's so the energy that is wasted is usually wasted as heat. That is a wasted form of energy. So there are two very important laws of thermodynamics that are very that apply to almost all organisms and plants or animals, and these mainly illustrates the flow of energy in our entire ecosystem. So the first law is called as the law of thermodynamics, which states that the first law is mainly the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can always change one form to the other. So for example, if you're ironing your shirt or a blouse, then electrical energy is converted into mechanical energy, and some of that is wasted as heat. Similarly, second law of motion says that anytime you convert energy from one form to the other, some of it is going to be wasted as heat. So the energy that is released as heat will almost go back into the ecosystem and keep on flowing within the ecosystem. So the energy flow is mainly like a linear flow, and it's not doesn't look like a cyclic flow. And these two laws are very very important to understand. Now, the second law of thermodynamics actually helps us understand that any reaction is not 100% efficient. There will always be a wasted energy that is dissipated as heat. The best example that I remember it with is that if you have an organized room or a clean room and you leave it with your toddler or a teenager, how long will that room stay organized? Because organization is less stable. So when you have something very organized, very neat, it's very likely to stay there for a very short amount. So disorganization, on the other hand, is more stable. So when we look at the molecules of, for example, the molecule that is the carbohydrate, which the plants have manufactured, this is it's a more structured molecule, and it's going to be less stable. So it will break down to release energy, and which is going to result in more stability because you have smaller molecules that are formed. So the first law of thermodynamics, which is the law of conservation of energy, and the second law has to do with entropy. Entropy is pretty much the wasted it's mainly the disorganized or the wasted energy that is released. And because of entropy, we know that almost every reaction has a certain percent of efficiency. You can have a 40% efficient reaction or an 80% efficient and not a 100% efficient reaction. On this diagram over here, you can see the contraction of the muscle is going to release certain amount of energy that is dissipated. Something else that I forgot to mention over here is if you look at the molecule of glucose, then glucose is a much more organized molecule. Why is it organized? Because it's a structured molecule that has a formula of C6H12O6. It has a lot more potential energy, but very unstable. And when it breaks down to carbon dioxide and water, which are smaller molecules, then it creates less organization but more stability, and it has less potential energy, which means that potential energy has to do with the position of an object. So for example, if I have a boulder that's rolling down the hill, then position A would be a higher potential energy than position B, because position B is lower, or it's more closer to the Earth's surface. So anytime you look at a position of a molecule, that determines its potential energy. Another example of entropy is, for example, which we will learn a little bit later, is the movement of hydrogen ions. Hydrogen ions are very important to cellular reactions, and there's an unequal distribution of these ions across the plasma membrane, and through certain channel proteins, which, if you can recall, is facilitated diffusion, hydrogen ions can then go across a concentration gradient, which means that it's higher on this end and it moves towards the end where is less hydrogen ions, and this causes more stability but less organization. And hydrogen ions are examples of also of the entropy, which is based on the second law of thermodynamics. So we'll now go on to the next section pretty soon.